Well, hello everyone. I'm back again with another update. Today is January 30th, 2023. I am at home mulling over why this winter has been so warm in some places, not everywhere, but eastern U.S. They're claiming it's third warmest January on record so far. New York City has still recorded no measurable snow this winter, breaking a record that stood since 1972-73 winter. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you a shot from that winter satellite picture. This is Northern Hemisphere. The U.S. is lower center. North America is near the center. Can't see it too well. This is from December 16th, 17th, 1972, which was that winter where New York City only recorded 2.8 inches of snow the whole winter and didn't get its first measurable snow until January 29th of the following month. What I'm going to do is show you some similarities to what's going on now. The difference is 1972-73 was a super El Nino. We're in a La Nina right now. This is what leads me to believe the weather is being manipulated on purpose to convince people that global warming is really happening and that it's never going to snow in New York City again. For example, get people thinking that way so they're more inclined to vote in ridiculous regulations that go with that policy. As I stated in my last video, New York City has actually recorded an increase in snowfall in the last couple of decades. Decade by decade, the last decade of the 2010s, over 300 inches of snow fell in New York City, so here they are now. Headlines, latest measurable snow. It still hasn't happened in New York City yet. They may not get any this whole winter. What they're not saying is there's been a long-term increase in snowfall in that locale over the last couple decades overall. They're not talking about that. They're talking about cherry-picking one year where they got lucky and they manipulated the weather so that they may not see any snow this year. I say got lucky because what they're doing is I believe several different things that are contributing to this weather pattern. Because even here in Virginia where I live, the last time I mowed the lawn was early October. Phenomenally early, the grass stopped growing because cold weather set in. The first week of October was the last week I had to cut the grass here. Since then, I have not had to cut it. So the growing season ended here very early. I mean, there were years up in northern Maine where I had to cut the grass into October. But after that, we got into December. Last video, I talked about that cold outbreak. We got down to 1 below, and then all of a sudden the pattern changed that week. Plus, we didn't get any snow to go with it. My pipes froze. My girlfriend, who's phenomenal, fixed the pipes. I had to go under the house, found a way to get under there. Of course, I assisted her. But that was the story. We have not had a cold outbreak in this area for more than 30 or more years, possibly even longer. That froze all the pipes like that. But since then, it's been like spring. And why? Why did the pattern flip? Well, you can see, you look very closely here from 1972-73. Look at the top. Top of this image shows, you see this area of cloudiness here. to the south of Southeast Asia. This is the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, they call it. In areas, it's the intertropical convergence zone in areas of convection that supposedly affect the weather patterns in other places of the planet. When you get a lot of convection in this area in the wintertime, what it does to the jet stream is, you go to the other side of the planet here, to North America, it tends to put a trough here. The jet stream goes like this. When you got that convection there, what it does is it makes the jet stream here come up, bringing a lot of rain to the west coast. You can see right there's a low pressure system in this image approaching the west coast, meaning they're getting a lot of rain. And then the jet stream goes up into Canada and then comes down like this. You can see it's doing that here. There's a low pressure here that's bringing some cold air down, but the cold air is coming down into the North Atlantic. It's not coming down into North America. So these systems here, being that the jet stream is going up like that, the polar jet, these systems are mainly going to bring rain to the East Coast because they're all in warmer air. Feeding up from the Gulf of Mexico, feeding up from this plume of moisture here. This is going back to 1972-73, that winter that the record was set previously for the latest snow in New York City. You can see some similarities here in the pattern. However, because it was a super El Nino, there was a lot of convection here that kind of was offsetting the effects of that a little bit here. So it wasn't as warm as this year's pattern, because you had this, which is favors cold weather, balancing out here, it favors warm weather for the MJO. Now, one thing that's missing here in that 72-73, right now, we go to here. I'm doing a video. There's a huge low pressure system right now over this area. You can see in this image there's a little bit of one there, but not as strong as one this year. Now, how does this all relate to what's happening now? What you see now is same thing. Loads of convection in this area. But the reason why I'm saying it's manipulated is because it's excessive. It's a huge amount of convection, a lot more than what you see here in this area. My take on it is they're putting satellite technology, energy into this whole area to enhance the convection here, to enhance this ridge to keep in place, to keep the warm weather going in the eastern U.S. They're trying to create a winter here where New York City is not going to see any snow at all. And then they're going to blame global warming on that, when indeed other areas of the hemisphere are freezing. Siberia. Another thing I see that I believe is being manipulated is in this area, they're enhancing this low pressure to be stronger. Why? Because a stronger low pressure system here is going to suck all this cold air out of Siberia. Instead of coming across into North America like this, it's going to go like this out into the Pacific. If they keep this going, it kind of dilutes the cold air that could come across otherwise and hit North America, come across the pole. Instead, it's going down like this because they're enhancing this low, putting energy into it to strengthen it. If you look closely on the images for the satellite imagery, you can see the waves of energy coming out from that low pressure area, and they're hitting it with energy. That's why those waves are there. They're hitting it with extra energy to strengthen that low, to pull this cold air out of Siberia, out into the Pacific harmlessly, or so they think it's harmless, out into the Pacific where it's not going to affect North America. Instead, it's just going to come out over the Pacific. Nobody lives there. There's no weather stations out there other than the Aleutians. And it's going to obviously get modified as it crosses the Pacific. Time it hits the west coast, it's going to be maritime cool air, and that's it. It's not going to really be that cold by the time it comes across. And so that's why the west coast has gotten all this rain, because the jet stream was coming up like this, going way up into Canada, and then coming down and clipping the Canadian Maritimes with some cold outbreaks here and there. Most of the U.S. in this area has basked in relative warmth the whole month of January, and they are going to continue perpetuating this pattern through February. I'm going to continue putting energy into this convection here to strengthen it so that it causes the jet stream here to continue going north. And they're going to continue strengthening that low pressure so that the cold air, whatever is in Siberia, is going to be siphoned out over the Pacific, not going to really affect North America. We do have a glancing blow coming up this weekend, February 4th, that's going to come across New England. And my take on that is they were hoping that this cold air would instead come out over the North Atlantic, but they miscalculated. It is going to clip New England this weekend. To give you an idea how cold some of this air is that's coming out over the Pacific, that's being siphoned out, this air mass is going to be 20 below zero in New England. This is the kind of cold air that they're siphoning out over the Pacific. What is that going to do? It's going to drastically cool the North Pacific. It's going to alter the weather patterns for years to come. Of course, the media or NOAA is not going to tell you that the Northern Pacific is cooling because it goes against the narrative. Right now, they claim the Northern Pacific is very, very warm anomaly, but I don't believe that. From all the cold air I've seen being siphoned over that region, there's no way that water is actually that warm. If anything, it's below average. This whole area, of course, if they honestly reported that, it would defeat the whole narrative. The oceans are cooling, not warming. They claim that this past year the oceans have been record warm. It's a false claim. There's no way. There is no way. I look at this map from 73. There's hardly even, or 72, December, there's hardly even any low pressure here compared to what you see now. Look at now, you'll see a huge bomb cyclone type that's been sitting there most of the winter in this area, to the point where it's generated an east to west flow at this latitude into Kamchatka. And these systems earlier in January were coming in across the Pacific, coming in toward the west coast and then going like this back across the Pacific. I didn't see any weather report that acknowledged that these systems were hooking back to the west instead of coming into the U.S. They were going like this and circling around. To me, that's weather manipulation. They were trying to prevent the systems from coming into the U.S. that would suck some of the cold air down out of Canada as they went east. Instead, the systems were going like this. So yeah, the west coast got it, but further east, maybe a little piece of energy would break off and come across, but it would not be strong enough to draw in any of this cold air up here to bring it down into the U.S., just perpetuating this warm pattern. And for snow lovers, I hate to say it, this may be the winter New York City gets off without any measurable snow. Will it be global warming? No, it won't be. It will be there manipulating the patterns. Again, to sum up, by enhancing the convection here, which is a warm phase of the MJO, by enhancing this low pressure system off the Kamchatka Peninsula in the western Pacific, northwestern Pacific, to draw the cold air out of Siberia into the Pacific, where it gets modified, it doesn't affect anybody, and then to keep the ridge over the eastern two-thirds of the country. And I guess they're going to just write off this winter for the West and allow the West to get more rain, because I guess their priority is to make sure New York City doesn't get any snow this winter. So that would be the biggest record to break. I mean, the West has already gotten a lot of rain, so I guess they don't really care that much anymore if the West gets even more. What they're going to try to do this year is make it the winter that New York City sees no measurable snow the whole winter. They may get away with it. I mean, unless the pattern changes toward the end of March, maybe even April, maybe they'll get something. Because you hit that time of year, this no longer has the same effect as it does in the middle of the winter. So that's going to be it for this video. I'll be back with another update.